We're still missing one person. Probably would that be?
You got Tony's email.
Tony, yeah, I did, but that's right, Tony's not here.
Oh, but I thought he was gonna.
Is he not gonna be here?
I'm sorry.
All right, well, welcome everybody to this dark night for our meeting. This is the November 21st commission meeting, and I welcome the public who are also here to the meeting, both here in person and if there's anyone in the Zoom meeting. I'm going to ask everybody, this is like pre-starting the meeting, I'm going to ask just my few comments. I'm going to ask everybody to speak loudly so that we can all hear what's being said, and loudly and be articulate, clear, and about that, if you wouldn't mind. We can get public comments from those in the room, but we don't get public comments from the people on Zoom. So just for anyone that is on Zoom, just be aware that we're very happy that you're here, but we don't take comments from you, but we're glad that you're here and participating and monitoring. And before we launch into the agenda, I was hoping that Tony would be here, but apparently he's not. And so I think he does have a surrogate who's going to share comments from Tony through Victor. Victor, do you want to share a little bit what's going on with Tony?
All right, Karen.
Well, should it be part of the official meeting, or we haven't started the meeting
I don't think this is just.
We could do it as part of the roll.
Yeah, let's just do it now. I think this
Okay,
is just
all
a comfortable knowing
Okay.
what's going on, kind of.
I'd hope to be able to attend this evening's meeting to say goodbye to my fellow commissioners in person. However, events preclude my attending. Please express to the commissioners my regrets for leaving before my term is finished. My wife and I have made this decision to move to Seattle area to be closer to family. I have very much enjoyed my tenure on the SJCAC and on the San Jose Clean Energy prior to this commission. I have learned a lot and made good friends. I wish you all well. Keep up the good work. Best regards, Anthony Strawa.
Yeah, thanks, Victor. Thank you. Now, I guess we can call the meeting to order, and so the meeting will now come to order. And would the secretary please do the roll call?
Donnie McCallie. Phil DeVincenzi. Glenn Garfunkel.
Present.
Ryan Lodico.
Present.
Lucia Marquez.
Present.
Ruth Merino.
Here.
Karen Nelson.
Present.
Victor Niemeyer.
Here.
Philip Remaker.
Present.
Anthony Strawa. And Tracy Wayne.
Great, thank you. So, but we do have, with two members missing, we still do have a quorum present. So we will move on to, I know you all received this meeting's agenda, and hopefully you reviewed it. I'm sure you did. And so are there any additional agenda items of the day, or any comments you have about the agenda from the commissioners? No, looking good. If there are no additional orders of the day, I call for acceptance of the orders of the day, which is the meeting's agenda. Is there a motion to accept? Victor? Victor moves to accept. A second. Ruth seconds. And so all in favor of accepting the agenda as is, raise your hand. And any opposed? It passes unanimously. All right. Okay, moving on. So next on the agenda is the public record. And are there any public records to be read? Okay. So if not, let's move on to the open forum, which is the opportunity for the public here in the room to speak on any item that doesn't appear on today's agenda. So any other items, but that is within the subject matter of this commission. And so I'm just gonna ask this just in case, I don't think that's necessarily true, but is there anyone here that needs a translator? No, okay. And so anyone who would like to speak from the public, please limit your comments to a couple of minutes and raise your hand and I'll call on you and state your name for the record. So are there any members of the public that would like to make a public comment? No, okay. Then with that, we will move on to the consent calendar. All right. So this is the minutes of the last meeting, of the September meeting. So are there any, which you did receive, are there any corrections to the minutes of the September meeting? This would probably be from the commissioners? No? So then if there is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as is? And so did I see Victor's hand raised? Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I'm gonna let you
don't-
do it.
I'll do all the easy ones.
And is there a second? Tracy seconds, and so could I see a show of hands for approval of the minutes as written, currently written? Anyone oppose? So there's a unanimous approval of the September minutes.
One comment on the minutes. I want to say that they are much more explanatory and complete than in the past, and that was, I think, in response to some requests, and I want to thank the staff for doing that.
Yeah, that's great to make that comment, thanks, that's important. Okay, so the first, in the reports and information only section, we're gonna go through really quickly this Climate Smart 6-month look ahead, and that's your attachment A. If you could just take a couple minutes, even though you may have reviewed it, if you could just take a quick look just to refresh yourself, and then just for a minute, and then we'll entertain any questions or comments you have about the look ahead. I'll just give you a minute or so. Okay, let's get started. Yeah, Tracy.
So we've been meeting like every other month, and this one says we're meeting in November, but we're also meeting in December? So we're meeting 2 months back to back?
Well, that's a good question, and that's probably for maybe a question for Anne. And Tracy's saying that she sees dates in here that are not tied to our every other meeting time, which now it would be the next meeting would be January. And so she's wondering, why are we seeing dates that are not tied to the meeting
These
months?
so most of these are council or committee dates that are upcoming relevant to Climate Smart, just letting you know that these are gonna be discussion items that are coming up. But then we've also put like at the top this November, December engagement, these webinars that we've been putting on, just letting you know. And actually I should have updated that because we did hold 3 building performance webinars and we do have 2 more upcoming in December. But everything else, the dates are pretty firm for the committee and council dates that are listed on there. Just so you're aware of the items that are going to be presented and which departments represent them. So if you have questions or anything, or want more information, and you can also check the city council calendar and find the agenda items on there for more information too.
I have a question about that since you brought up building performance, and that's environmental services that is taking the lead on that. So, sort of just real briefly, what are the range of issues, since it's environmental services and not permits, that you address under building performance?
So the building performance ordinance is a requirement for buildings that are 20,000 square feet and above to report on their energy and water usage. So there's two different programs. We have our standard annual benchmarking, which is just reporting the energy and water use over the last year. And then you get a scorecard every year based on how well your building does to similar types of buildings of this similar size in San Jose. And then additionally, we have a second program that's called Beyond Benchmarking, which there's essentially two pathways to compliance. There's a performance pathway, which basically says that you meet some criteria of reducing your water and energy use, or you either perform an audit or you get certain building upgrades that are supposed to help your building become more efficient over time. So yeah, we're changing, the webinars are about changing language in the ordinance. Right now, the ordinance says that on that performance pathway for beyond benchmarking, that the value you achieve is based on the mean, but we want to change that language to be the median in the area. It actually makes the ordinance a little more stringent, and it basically forces buildings to have to perform better in order to be in compliance.
So if they aren't in compliance, what happens, what happens for them?
If they aren't in compliance, well, essentially they are, if they aren't for beyond benchmarking, if they don't meet the performance pathway, they have to go and to the other pathway, which means that they have to either get an audit of the building, which would show them where they can perform better, or they have to actually do upgrades to the building, things like drip irrigation or light switches that are motion detectors and things like that, that different upgrades that help them to become more efficient.
Can you actually close a building down if they simply won't comply?
So the ordinance does not really have a penalty to not complying. You're basically just on a list and we ask you to comply. But we actually are looking into something called a building performance standard, which would be a little bit more tough, I guess you could say. So that's actually, I don't, if for anybody who hasn't heard, we are currently in negotiations with the Department of Energy for a $10 million grant. Fingers crossed, we still get the funds, but that $10 million over the next 10 years would be to change our building performance ordinance to a building performance standards, which would have an enforcement element to it.
Which would be enforceable. Okay, right, good to know. Gosh, are there any other questions about the look ahead?
We wanted to find out more about how the Go Green teams are doing. Is there one of these meetings that we should attend?
Let's see, for the Go Green teams, let's see. So we're actually just getting started. We're doing outreach to try and get involvement. If you're interested in like what we can do to get the word out more, you can actually reach out to me. That's my team that's doing the outreach and recruitment for that. And we generally do report outs in our stakeholders meetings. So there was just one today, and we usually have them about once a month. Occasionally they're canceled, but that's probably the best place to get updates on that information. But yeah, you can absolutely just reach out to me directly, and I can obviously get updates for you. And our newsletter, actually, we're going to be putting some information in there as well.
It's cool to see these documents that are coming up. Would it be all right to send them to us, like the electric vehicle fleet charging infrastructure status report, or, I mean, electronically?
Absolutely. If you wouldn't mind just like emailing me which ones you would like, I can definitely try to, because I'm not automatically notified, so I would just need to remember to check on the date for the council calendar to get those attachments. But they are also published on the council calendar publicly, so you can also check on your own, but I'm happy to.
The reason I say that is that sometimes, you know, you all know what's going to council or things like that. We don't. It's hard for us to monitor and track, so that if there are these reports, sort of either automatically send them to the commission or one of us can look and tell the others if you want.
Yeah, if there's specific ones that you want, I can mark on my calendar to check, but the problem is that I only know about the ones I'm responsible for.
Okay.
Unless they're.
We know, I mean, we could
flag
we
these
could commit
dates.
to these.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sending you a report to Julie. I just emailed it to you. full list of initiatives that are ongoing.
Okay.
But not the documents.
But not the actual memos that are going to council,
Not the
but.
doc-
Mhm.
You want the memo.
Summary,
Yeah.
summary.
want the memo.
I'd like to see
Summary.
the memo, the vehicle charging and the
Mhm.
power
That one-
status
some of
report
those
are
might
the two
already
initiatives
be
off the top of the list.
Posted,
Yeah.
posted very soon.
They're gonna be posted Monday.
Monday.
All right,
Any other thoughts or comments, questions? Great, well, that was great. Well, let's move on into old business. And we'll start with San Jose Clean Energy Reserves Policies Update from Zach Struck. And Zach, would you like to present everything and then get questions, or what's your preference? Or have people ask questions as we go?
To the, let's say, clarifying questions along the way, but besides that, maybe we'll try to get through it, trying to get through the item, including questions in 10 to 15 minutes today, just given the things that we have. So,
That's perfect.
So,
Okay.
without further ado, so this is follow-up. Can we go back?
Yeah, sorry.
So this is follow-up to last meeting. And so the ad hoc committee, this is the final slide, or perhaps second to last slide from the report. And there was this question, summarizing here, cash has grown quickly. And what to do with the growing cash position, and maybe is it prudent to reconsider a reserves policy revision? So with that as the backdrop, next slide, please. An update on where things stand. So this is where we do quarterly unaudited. I'm sorry, it's not there. So here's the year-end balance. So that's now audited and posted. So that's as of the end of June. This is as of the end of September. Both of these are posted now. And then this is where we think things are going to finish at the end of December. And again, that's an estimate. So these are both finalized and where things stand. So you can see that as described as that cash is decent, that we thought we were basically going to be flat from June until the end of the year. Things have been a little bit better than we expected. Some of this is a little bit artificial in that we know we will not have paid all of our bills at the end of December, that we know that there are some things that have tended to be outstanding. We have large payments coming January, February. So plus or minus about 210 million in the reserve at the end of this calendar year, which is the equivalent of 157 days of operating expenses. Including the newly created rate stabilization reserve of 50, combined, that is approximately 192 days of operating expenses. So the target is 180 days. Yes, Glenn?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So we see like a downward trajectory on these number of days of reserves. Is that expected to continue into?
I think that this is, we have rates to, newly consider in 2025, and we have agency in what trend is coming. I would say maybe your question is this ratio of like how many dollars does a day, how many days does a dollar buy you? That ratio has changed, again, as we expected it was going to. Summer is more expensive than winter. And so this ratio of dollars to days changes over these columns. I think this is probably pretty indicative, this ratio is probably pretty indicative for what calendar 2025 is gonna look like. Yeah, I'll get into what we think 2025 is gonna look like. Next slide, please. So a quick refresher on what are the two categories of reserve, what's the difference? What we call the operating reserve is used essentially to show strength. It is to show our suppliers, particularly the power suppliers, that we are going to be here to live up to our contracts and buy the things that we said we're going to buy. Related to that, earlier this year, we got our own standalone credit rating for San Jose Clean Energy. It was a good one, investment grade, and part of that rating was, oh, you have a certain amount of cash at hand if you need it. We also can use this for one day, if we did want to invest in generation assets, it could be a source for that. And then really, it's here in an emergency. And I can talk about what does an emergency look like? Because as Victor and others have said, well, you can always raise rates, and that's true, but it takes a little time. The rate stabilization reserve is, in contrast, I'll say it's a little bit more ready to go, and that it is created, or it was created from deferred revenue in a given year. So that's can be tapped to do things like to adjust any sudden changes so that we don't have to change rates and increase rates to people. It allows us to maintain certain ratios that we are bound to maintain by the banking agreement we have with our bank, JP Morgan. We need to maintain a certain ratio of essentially income to expenses. That needs to be greater than 1. And there's some caveats to that, but it can be used to balance that out. And that's this financial covenants that we're talking about here. And again, sort of getting back to this, what is the credit rating agencies want to see? They want to see a going concern. They don't want to see a business that's losing money. And so this can be used to, essentially shift revenue from one year to another to show this operating concern health. Next slide. Yes.
Back to the credit ratings, people. Those are two different free cash. I mean, they're both cash accounts, right?
Yes.
That the city. Do they really distinguish between what's in stabilization? I mean, it's all cash, and it should all count. We should probably get credit for all of it, right?
It's early days for us with the credit ratings agencies, right? We're 6 months into how do you guys think about these things, and they are deliberately a bit cagey. So we because they if we knew exactly the formulas they use, and they worry that we could sort of game the system or what have you. So yes, we are getting credit for both. Sorry, didn't mean to make a pun there. For both categories of reserve, they do sort of treat those both as cash, but there's some a little bit of I think this is reduced a little bit. I don't think you're getting dollar for dollar on this one.
Hey, Zach, are those credit rating institutions, are they private, or do they have any kind of government connection?
No, they're private.
Okay.
So it's S&P and Moody's, and again, if you think back to the banking crisis, there was a lot of arguing as to were they quasi-governmental, were they keeping this whole house of cards afloat, and were they commensurate? Anyway, but no, they're private companies. Next slide. One of the big sources of volatility and instability for CCAs is this thing called the PCIA, which stands for Power Charge Indifference Adjustment. Adjustment. Thank you. Can't believe I still can't get that out. And so this, for those of you who are newer to our, I want to just do a quick primer on this. A lot of detail in here, which we can talk about another time if you want to. I can follow up, can give you more reading. But so our customers pay this, and so when we compare ourselves to PG&E, we compare our rates plus this ongoing charge compared to PG&E's rates. And this charge changes every year, and it's not so easy to forecast. We've gotten a lot better at forecasting, and we've engaged consultants and we've built models, but it's still a little wild. And so really what this is meant to be, this is meant to compensate PG&E and customers that stay with PG&E, in territory, particularly in territories that don't have CCAs, to make sure they're not worse off. Because PG&E and other investor-owned utilities, they bought power and built generation facilities thinking that they were going to serve their customers forever. And so the argument is like, well, hey, when if 350,000 accounts leave, what about these? We've got extra power. Like, we paid for all these high-priced solar contracts and this and that, and this is not fair. And so fine. So this idea that there should be some used to be called an exit fee. There's no exit, so it's a bad name for it. But so this is meant to try to measure the cost of the portfolio that PG&E is holding of these excess assets relative to the value of those assets, and that the difference between those is the indifference amount that our customers have to pay. Next slide. This elevator pitch, I think the CalCCA, our trade association, put these together. I'm not going to go through this. You have the material. I encourage you to read and be ready to be the least popular person in your elevator if you talk about this. But it is a really good descriptor here. But in the interest of time, I'm gonna move on. So a little more detail of that formula we looked at just a moment ago. So what goes into the costs that PG&E has to generate power? This UOG, that stands for utility-owned generation, right? So these are generation assets like a gas plant or a hydropower power plant that PG&E owns and operates. So they built it, they make a return on it every year, and the taxes that they pay associated with that. They also have they've entered into PPAs, power purchase agreements. And so what are those costs? And then the revenue, yes. What are they getting when they sell this thing that's called RA, which stands for resource adequacy? Basically, it's you can think about the sort of the capacity that exists to generate that for any of these plants, which stabilizes the grid. And the RPS, that's Renewable Portfolio Standard. So that's RECs or renewable energy credits, and then fuel. So this is what they, what are they getting out of all this? And this is the value. Essentially, this is the market price of all of these things. And that's set by the PUC, California Public Utility Commission, every year using this thing called market price benchmark. And that is, they take all the data of all the transactions that are reported to them for what were the sales of these renewable energy credits? What were the sales of brown power? What was brown power actually settling at? And then what was this resource adequacy? What was that all selling at? So value versus the portfolio cost. If the value is really big, it means that the PCA should be small. If the costs way outweigh the value, then PCA is big. Okay, next slide. I'm sorry, can you go back just one? So no, that's fine. Sorry. So this is showing, and so there's two pieces. There's a forecast each year, and then the following year, and so that's what the PCA is set. And then the following year, there's a true up of how did things actually settle, along with the forecast for the going forward year. So every year you're looking back and you're looking forward. So here, just to get a sense of how things move around, this was the forecast for 2024 for, let's use this one, for renewable energy credits. This is one we know about. So when we started this business, it was 10 or 15. Last year, the forecast was 31. The actual, 54. And then next year, they're estimating 71. So that's a lot. This is not the biggest piece of the puzzle. So they're not weighted equally. The biggest driver is brown power pricing. That has gone down in the last couple of years, but these things have been a massive counterweight to that. So this RA, we've talked about this resource adequacy has really skyrocketed. And I'll say that this growth of these things is not necessarily good for anyone. We pay these prices. We know how bad it is. But the flip side of knowing that paying them already is that it's good to see these high prices reflected in the PCA because that's what we see in the market. And what do we do? This needs to be resolved. PG&E's pushing hard to put a cap on this market price benchmark for resource adequacy, and that then there should be a balancing account for anything over that, and it's sort of a smoothing effect. Well, we tried that in 2020. There was supposed to be a cap on the PCIA, and then PG&E didn't like that. And so there was like this big whiplash. Next slide, please. So here's the trend since really since CCS really got going. There was this big spike. There was, at the end of 2018, there was a sort of a reset, a big reset to the current framework. And you see just really, those were excruciating years in 2021, really bad time for us. And then it has come down, as you would predict, because market prices were high here. And so there's a lag between, so you can end up with this double whammy situation of a high PCIA and high market prices. And then the following year, it really kind of whipsaws back. Next year there's a range of forecasts for what we think it's going to be in 25. If the rules don't change, it should be about like it is this year. We don't know yet. So we're 40 days out from the end of the year when PG&E's new rates are supposed to come. And I would say it's like plus or minus 40 million of what the PCA is going to be in terms of what it would mean for our revenue, our ratepayers. And that's crazy. So we've gotten a lot better at this, but it's still really, really sliding around.
Is that, this is all tied to the IOU that we're connected to.
Yes.
So then is there a PCIA volatility data for Santa Clara and for?
They don't have this.
So they don't have.
Because everyone in Santa Clara, you don't have a choice, it's a monopoly.
So
It's a good business to be in.
Yes, exactly. So if for some reason we chose to move from, there's been some discussion in the past about either California as a whole or at least maybe our city also becoming its own utility, then what would happen to those PCI charges if and when that would happen? They just go away?
There would be a fight about it. There would probably be an actual exit fee, a one-time payment, and then that would have to be absorbed somehow, whether that would be paid out over time or something. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Is this 2024 number not the actual or the end of year number
No, correct. This is what is in place
at the beginning of the year?
at the beginning of the year, and I think I think it's pretty close. Yeah, because again, like this has gone down, but these have gone up. So, okay. So next, so we spent all that time to talk about this is the volatility that we're dealing with year over year, and to the goal, particularly now that we're up and we have reserves, is to try to have a smoother customer rate experience. So that's the PCI is sort of pushing the other way, and a reserve can help blunt moves in the PCIA. What about other CCAs? What are they doing? Well, I would say generally they're in a very similar range to us. They have targets of about 50%, which is the same as saying about 180 days. So you see a range here. Some are a little bit higher, some down here much higher. Silicon Valley Clean Energy, they have a target of 350 days, so about 2 years. These Ava already is sitting on about 65%. If you look at their financial statements and so forth, so we're pretty squarely in line with others. Just want to make that point. And next slide. And so what's coming. So the numbers we saw at the beginning were about at 180, a little bit above if you're counting both buckets. Going forward, the plan is to basically run a break-even business with a slight profit. I'd say we're aiming for single digit to maybe very low double digit million of margin just to make sure we squeak by. If we do start to accumulate cash, we'll explore bill credits, and that's not hard to do. Our data service and billing operations company, they've done that for other CCAs, so that's definitely in play. But mostly we're essentially trying to run a break-even in business, and so we may even experiment, maybe not this year, but with truly sort of trying to set prices at break-even rates to recover break-even, and then using the rate stabilization reserve to feather that up if we need to. But these regulatory uncertainties are really what we're battling. If somehow we saw big PCA reform, maybe it changes, and maybe we can, like we said, if it feels more like monopoly, then maybe that could be the case. I missed my chance back there, like what does an emergency look like? So people still talk about PG&E going bankrupt. That's when you walk around Sacramento, I'm surprised how many meetings that comes up in as almost like it's not a if, it's a when people talk about. And this is not me, CCA kicking, this is just, it just comes up. And last time PG&E went bankrupt, really quickly, the judge ruled that PG&E should be allowed to continue to distribute customer remittances to the CCAs that we were entitled to. Well, what if we get the different judge? And what if it takes them 2 months to sort that out, that like, hey, there's no risk? Usually in bankruptcy, I don't know if people have familiarity, usually cash gets trapped. And so we're doing $30 million a month, and we got to pay. Whether or not we're getting paid, we're in the market. We got to pay suppliers. We got to pay CAISO. So a couple months of that, you burn through cash really quickly. And again, I'm about to sound dramatic, but what if it's wildfire season? And what if we get the bad day where a transmission line's down? And our suppliers, we've hedged. What if no power's coming in and suddenly we're buying short-term on the market, and the CAISO invoice comes, we got to pay in 3 days. 3 days. Here in this city, we figured out how to pay things in 3 days. Believe it. Tens of millions of dollars, we're making these payments. But all of a sudden, we could have, $50 million. Like, we got to get that out. Again, we're in the market. We have to serve customers. We got to pay people. So that all sounds a little dramatic. I agree. But is that beyond the realm? No. Does the city general fund want to have to dig in on short notice and some Herculean unnatural acts? No. So anyway, this is where we are. Thank you for your patience. That's the last slide. Can I answer any other questions?
Yeah, so years ago when I started learning about the PCA, the PG&E purchases were confidential and we never really learned, like, are they still buying for us power?
No,
They're
they're not. So we, our consultant has signed the NDA to get access to the PG&E stuff.
Okay.
And they have it's sort of a, who's allowed to see what part of, so they're using that in a model that we can't see.
Okay.
But anyway, we have confidence that it's being done much more correctly than it used to be.
And so we've been around for 5 years now, so are their contracts like 20 years, or because I've
Some of
heard
them
they
are.
go forever for some reason.
That's right. I think, because there's this category of utility, the things they own, as long as they're running, we're paying for those.
Forever.
So yeah, I know, it's wild. And then, so now we argue about when they have to like upgrade it or sort of rehab it, is that their cost or our cost?
How about ones that aren't owned, like contracts?
So the people, so when those roll off, they roll off. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But we're not seeing any?
No, we are the magnitude of the impact. There's some progress there. Yeah.
How much is utility owned? Do we know?
I can get that to you, what fraction that is, but.
Okay, can we expect like in 20 years that at least half of the burden is sort of evaporated?
In 20 years, I think it'll be more than half. Yeah. And so that's one potential is like, hey, there's been talks about, hey, can we buy this out? And then you could finance against it, right? Then you could raise bonds, and that would be a much more financially efficient way to do it. But the investor-owned utilities, for them, they're like, why would I do that? Like, because right now they're being made whole, like, doesn't matter. Like, things go down for them, great, they raise rates. Things go up, like, it hurts us. So they're like, why would I take a guess? Because you would have to take a guess about what is, let's agree what 20 years look like. We're calling that, pull it forward, this is the dollar amount, great, shake hands, done. Well, they would say, well, I don't know what things are happening in the future. And so the only way I would do that is if it's a crazy scenario, a crazily favorable scenario to them. And then we're like, well, that doesn't look good to me. And then like, why would I negotiate? So until the governor or someone like that pushes them, or maybe they go in bankruptcy again, and then maybe it's really time to negotiate. I did not prepare recommendation language because this isn't part of a memo that we have. I know, Vic, you and Bill, we're talking about like, well, maybe the CAC would want to write a memo and a recommendation of your own to Teeny or something like that. But so that seemed like a taller order of pros than it made sense for me to take a swing at. Particularly since we're recommending no change right now. Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Zach?
A clarifying question. So for now, the reserves are going to continue to grow because, well, you said that we want to be above break even.
Maybe,
So if we're
yeah,
above break
maybe,
even,
maybe, yeah, that's,
they're going to grow, right? And if we go to break even, then they stop growing. They didn't grow last summer because we lowered the rates at the same time we knew September was going to be very expensive for slice of day.
Yeah.
In the fall, they usually rates come down, but we have bills from September that still roll into it. So the fall sort of can explain that. But winter and spring are often been really good for us.
Yes.
And then it sort of comes back. The amount of money we're talking about could sort of cover our expenses for many, 180 days or 192. If you go back to
right,
the other
that's right, it was
slide.
192.
192 days, which was higher than what we were sort of thinking we wanted to have 2 years ago or whenever we had that meeting with you all. So how many days is sort of would make you comfortable?
Well, I don't know who Catherine Welsh is, but where I think this is going is we move to this set rates that we show a profit, and then we get into this sort of annual dividend kind of thing, where we're giving the money back, and that we try to hold it at 180, 192, wherever we are.
We could have sort of free Februaries.
We could have free Februaries.
You could sort
I
of
love the market.
take a nickel
Yeah.
off of everything, or you could do something dramatic and everybody loves you and they want to stick around till next. You don't want to know which month because there'll be strategic usage in February. But you could make a show. You could
This
do
month
something
is-
to really get people's attention rather than being like everybody else who's trying to get as much as they can and, wave the flag.
Yeah. So, right. So that this is a version. What you're suggesting is, rather than some, wimpy rebate, maybe we get a little more creative with, half price summer or whatever it is. But some concept of great. San Jose Clean Energy. You want to show that you can have the right business.
It should be
Great.
April.
Hit your number
Prices
and
are in
then
the toilet,
give some
April.
back. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions from the public? Zach, did I hear you right? So do you want us to accept this report? Should we do that?
I don't know that you need a.
We don't need to do that?
I think you need to.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Okay, great, all right. Very good, thank you very, very much. So now we're into talking about, working with Glenn to talk about the update on the noise and setback requirements that you started discussing in September. And so Glenn, do you want to present the whole thing and then have questions or?
I'll keep it
go?
super, I'm assuming you
Short,
want to keep
okay.
it short.
Okay,
Did you
Yeah,
get
and that's what.
presentation?
Oh, yeah.
Should-
It should be, I think this should be.
So we'll set up
updated.
just a couple of pages here.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a one-page summary of the key part of my discussions, and I won't try to go into too much more unless you guys want to go into it. So I'll just read through this. The primary motivation here is often homeowners prefer to have heat pumps located in side yards. This is the outdoor unit for heat pump installation. Have their heat the focus here is on sort of mostly single family properties, maybe other properties that are suitable, could be small commercial. But instead of, for sort of single family residents, instead of having heat pumps in the front yard or in their backyard, people would commonly refer to have them in their side yards. But there's two ordinances that are slightly problematic here, or in the case of San Jose, one ordinance, which is the side yard setback requirements. So San Jose, along with other cities, will have set side yard setback requirements of 5 feet, sometimes 6 feet or 7 feet, depending on the city. And those requirements are really not compatible with putting a heat pump in your side yard unless you have a large side yard, larger than 7 feet or 8 feet. The 5-foot requirement, my understanding of it, its history as it pertains to clearance that some city fire departments prefer, but I note two bullets here under sub-bullets under that comment. That is that numerous cities, even in the Bay Area, actually are getting by with a minimum clearance of 3 feet in side yards. And those cities include this is the, you scroll down, this is not the one I sent, this is the old one.
Yeah. You said Mountain View, Campbell, Menlo Park, Palo Alto, Milpitas in the paper.
Yes, you got it. Can we get the?
Oh, I think
Yes, so, while they're looking for that, yeah, Mountain View, Menlo Park, Campbell, Palo Alto, thank you.
And Milpitas.
Milpitas, at a minimum, are have these sort of allowances, and then get by with a minimum 3 foot. So
Oh, we're here with the cities. There you go.
That's it.
and then further note sub-bullet 2 that San Jose already actually has numerous of the allowances for chimneys, other architectural features, and including tankless gas water heaters to get by with a minimum of 3 foot clearance. So we can obviously, the fire department's obviously living with 3 foot clearance already. But San Jose does not have that exception allowed for heat pumps right now. So there's efforts, not just from me, but from other groups in the Bay Area and I think statewide, and maybe even in other states, my understanding, to try to change ordinances to facilitate heat pump installations and other aspects of electrification. So, and the reason for this is not just to facilitate the energy transition, but also to facilitate people passing inspection and getting their permits, which they may need for tapping into the incentives. Okay. So we're requesting the planning department to revise its ordinance to allow a minimum clearance of 3 feet for heat pumps. That's currently allowed for heat pumps. This is only needed for the very small side yards. If people have large, generous side yards, then it doesn't come into play. Okay, we can go to the next page. Yes.
Who's we?
Sorry.
Because we are
Me,
requesting.
and then hopefully we.
Oh, okay.
Karen has a. Yeah. So that's why
Just
it's on.
curious.
And then hopefully.
I wasn't sure
If
where we
you
were
guys are,
going.
yeah. So, I mean, it's me and there are some other carbon-free Palo Alto, and there are some other groups that are
Okay,
working to exactly the same tune. So
okay.
hopefully the commission buys into this. We can discuss that. So
Okay.
this is just a short I mean, that was sort of prior material,
Okay,
and I promised in a previous meeting that I would share materials to the commission that I hadn't previously. So that was a short summary. There's some more, but I'm not sure we need to get into it pertaining to the noise aspect. I'm more than happy to get into it in great detail, but I'm not sure we have bandwidth here. This is some new updates. So PVC has assigned person to or there is a person who has ownership of this review of the ordinances now. I just learned this last week. It's progress for me because before we had moving targets, so that's good news. Different people were having different things to say about it. Now I found who's taking ownership of this. It's Aperna. I had brief discussion with Aperna. They're reviewing material and promised to get back to me by mid-December with a sort of a preliminary assessment on the situation. The current plan that previously we had in our previous meeting, we had voted to have a request to PBCE to have a meeting in November, December, but I think given this this target of getting feedback in December, let's wait for that. Let's wait for that feedback and then decide if we need to go ahead with that. It can be January type timeframe. Planning, PBC is planning to have other unrelated ordinance permitting updates brought before council for approval in spring, is our understanding. And so if PBC is supportive of some changes to the ordinances, they could include that in the spring package. That was what's been voiced to me by a couple planning people the past few weeks. Whether they might be open to doing it a little earlier than that, I don't know. But it sounds like at a minimum, we should be able to count on that if they're supportive. So there's discussion on noise. It's in the I have it attached as sort of appendices here. After this, we can get into that if you want, but I'm happy to just skip that in the interest of saving time. But important to note here, we resolved this issue, which had not been resolved in our last meeting, that currently San Jose actually is not doing anything on noise. They don't have a requirement for inspection process or permit granting. And it's sort of up to the burden is on the homeowner that they don't have problems with their neighbors. And it sounds like they've gotten away with this. They've gotten away with this. They don't seem to have a big issue here. So my proposal, and I kind of go into detail in the following material there, but I'm supportive we keep that in place. We don't try to mess with that aspect and just request the setback minimum or the clearance minimum to 3 feet. So Karen proposed that we have a letter of support. We can discuss. I put some language together, a couple sentences.
I think Ruth had her hand up first, but I have a question too.
So I'm not that familiar with heat pumps. So if I have a heat pump and it's in my side yard and let's say it's 38 degrees, will the heat pump make noise all night if it's going, or I have a gas system and it goes on and off.
Mhm.
So does the heat pump, if it's cold outside, is it noisy all night long, or?
Well, it depends on your thermostat setting, but
It goes on and off is what I'm trying to say, the fan.
so the modern inverter heat pumps tend not. So I don't know what type of heat pump, gas heating you have, but modern inverter heat pumps modulate down to 30% or 25% of their peak capacity. So they tend not to turn on and off as often as non-inverter single speed heat pumps or air conditioners,
Okay.
which are those turn on to 100% noisy.
Yeah.
When they're 100% and then off and on and off all the time. Modern heat, sort of the so-called inverter heat pumps or variable speed heat pumps modulate down. They're very quiet when they're modulated down to a lower capacity point.
So is that the 60? Because 60's kind of loud.
60 dB we're talking?
Uh-huh.
60 dB.
I just, just curious.
Yeah, there's a lot of, okay, we're gonna get in the noise. I think 60 dB is not very loud, a sort of normal conversation voice. The city of San Jose has a 55 dB property line limit, but other cities are higher, and a lot of cities make exceptions for short time windows. Like they say you can have the noise, 5 dB above or 10 dB above for 15-minute intervals within like a 2-hour window or something like this. They allow for little exceedances instead of having a hard threshold. Other cities have a higher noise limit during the daytime than the nighttime, and lower it down at nighttime.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So it gets a little complicated, but modern heat pumps are relatively quiet.
Okay.
And there also are mitigating measures that can be taken to minimize the noise, right? And my heat pump, I basically put it into low noise modes to minimize it.
Okay.
And people can do sound blankets, and there's some other measures that can be taken. Yeah. So a lot of issues there. We can dig into it. Not sure how much we want to get into it here.
Quick question, Glenn. I'm curious, this is about the setback. So, are there setback requirements? This is on a different thing, but I'm wondering if we should add it to this. And you may not want to, are there setback requirements for solar battery storage that sits outside the house?
I think there are, yes. I think there are also. Yeah, it's for everything.
Okay, because
I mean, there are exceptions for chimneys and bay windows and architectural features and tankless gas heaters. But batteries, unless, I don't think there's, for San Jose, we don't have an exception for batteries, so they also have to meet the setback. And it can be a problem, like I know, like SunVolt's product is pretty deep.
Yeah, we're
It's
just
like-
doing this like Monday, so that's why my question. The other thing I'm curious about in terms of just data to prove the importance of this from a, climate emission control point of view, do you have any kind of data that suggests how many homeowners, should everyone want to convert, would have a problem with the 5-foot setback? I'm guessing quite a few, but do you have any idea about, percentages of
I haven't
homeowners?
tried to, but to me,
I
it's
don't know how you did
it's
that.
kind of obvious because I go around my neighborhood and I look, I measure, and I know I have a problem right.
Yeah.
I won't get permitted because I'm violating the rule right now.
Yeah, I'm just
I
sort of
have a
curious.
place, and I see houses much smaller than 3 foot of 5 foot space that some houses have, like townhouses have very tight space between property.
I have a related question. So do we have a sense for roughly what percent of heat pumps would then fall into the acceptable range if we move this setback down to 3 feet? So essentially, based on, average heat pump size, if we move this to 3 feet, is that going to allow for the vast majority of models, still just some? Do you have any sense for that?
I think it's a question of how many houses, not the, most if we set to 3 foot, it would solve a problem for a large fraction. I don't have hard numbers for you, but I mean, I know typical side yards might be 6 feet for tight ones, even 7 feet. If and like I have about a 7 foot, and I cannot put my heat pump on violating the setback right now.
Okay.
So, and I know many houses that are tighter than mine, so they'll be in the same boat. I don't have hard numbers,
Any questions from the public?
but you can look at lot sizes, and you can almost go on Google Maps and you can see some of these numbers there, but
Yeah,
I might need to get some city drawings to get.
I guess the core of that question is I don't have a great sense for the average size of a heat pump. So I guess knowing kind of that size relative to the.
The typical depth of a heat pump would be, say, 12 inches, maybe 10, maybe 12. Mine's 14, sorry, mine is 19 inches, but mine's a little thicker than normal. Typical might be 12 or 14, and you need to have typical clearance space for airflow behind the heat pump.
They have some photos in the appendix of some
Yeah,
typical units.
I don't have the specs. Typical, you'll have minimum of 8-inch clearance from the wall to the heat pump, and I'm talking suitcase footprint heat pumps, not the square footprint heat pumps. So you have 8 inches of clearance to the wall, and then say 12 inches, 14 inches depth of a heat pump. So that's almost 2 feet right there. If you've got a 6-foot side yard, you're already into this 5-foot setback.
Any questions or comments from the public on this? Glenn, what do you want to do? Do you want to call for a motion? Do you want to make a motion, or do you want, it's really your call, what you want to do
Well,
about?
Is the commission, what's the commission's?
Why don't you make a motion to that effect, and then we'll get a vote on it. If you want to, if you care to.
I have a short letter, a few sentences that I think are,
Is it in the package?
no,
Okay.
it's not, because I wrote it this afternoon.
Okay.
So you move to,
I can read the letter and then we can move to,
and then we'll discuss it.
okay. Climate Advisory Commission supports efforts to modify, this is a little more general, so I think there shouldn't, so anyway, it doesn't get into the noise topic. So we can add noise, or the city can separately.
If I take a picture of it.
You can take a picture, yeah. The city can have separate position on the noise. They can add ordinances on the noise. Okay. The Senate Advisory Commission supports efforts to modify our city ordinances to facilitate electrification, including the installation of HVAC heat pumps. The current side yard setback requirement of 5 feet is a major impediment to the siting of heat pumps in side yards, as the city already has exceptions for a minimum clearance of 3 feet for other situations, including tankless gas heaters. We request the city grant an exception for HVAC heat pumps as well. We note numerous other cities already allow side yard clearances as low as 3 feet. Further supporting material is provided. That's what I have so far. We can, anybody have any? We can leave it at that, or we can add.
I think probably I think you've got the general point, and we probably don't want to lengthen it necessarily. The point is that you want the city or the planning, the PBCE to, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So you want to read that
One more time.
again for us?
The Advisory Commission supports efforts to modify our ordinances to facilitate electrification, including installation of HVAC heat pumps. The current side yard setback requirement of 5 feet is a major impediment for the siting of heat pumps in side yards, as the city already has exceptions for a minimum clearance of 3 feet. For other similar situations like tankless gas water heaters, we request the city grant an exception for HVAC heat pumps as well. We know numerous other cities already allow side yard clearances as low as 3 feet. Further supporting materials provided. That was sort of direct. If you want to make it a little more vague, you can say we request the commission can seriously consider this or something like that.
What are because you're gonna send this to T&E or?
Karen suggested.
Well, this is my thought was that
Yeah.
rather than studying, talking about it in this setting and and waiting until the reviews, that come out and the public comment period starts, to make our comments known, that given we're the commission, that we should send a letter to the city or to PBCE, whatever, to let them know our opinion about this.
Okay.
And our goal is that they can, well, it's up to Glenn, they can at least consider this as an adjustment to the permitting standards. And so it would come from the commission as a request to either a request to consider or request to do. And that's up to Glenn, he's making the motion.
Yeah, so I'd like to know, who are you gonna send it to, the council or TNE? Because it has to be, well, if we're approving this letter, I wanna know who it's
Yeah.
going to.
So I mean,
It's up
I'm
to-
open, but Karen's idea, what I thought was reasonable, was send it to the planning.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Since they're the guys that are,
yeah,
it's all under
that's,
control of planning, they're the only
okay,
ones
yeah,
that-
I just don't know because I don't see the letter, I just wanna know who it's going to, that's fine.
It's it's addressed, San Jose Community Advisory Commission letter to planning.
Okay, maybe I missed that part,
Yeah.
okay.
So is everyone clear enough? Is there a second on the motion to craft and send a letter from the commission?
Well, it's written already, because we approved the letter, we approved the wording of the letter, right? He's not gonna craft it, it's written, right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Well, yeah,
if you're,
well, to send, well, whatever. I'll
Yeah, because
say
usually when
whatever.
we send something out, we approve the wording in the letter.
Right,
So that sounds,
this is the wording.
okay. And so is there a second?
A second.
Okay, Ryan seconds it, and so, is there any more discussion, or shall I move to a vote?
and then, so my last question is, so you're just gonna put all these attachments here to planning? Because you said the supporting is attached.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
By the
just
way,
wanna
there's
just-
another important detail I didn't share with you, I'll just throw in that Silicon Valley, I mean, it's in the material, but should mention to everybody, Silicon Valley Clean Energy had hired consultants to do a big study.
Mhm.
And I actually got the consultants' reports. They have a kind of an short executive summary and a more detailed summary, and it's included in this package. And it is basically similar as far as the clearances. They're also recommending 3 feet. They go into a bunch of discussion on noise, which is sort of another topic, but it's we're well aligned with, or they're aligned with us. So,
I guess I would just make one, if it isn't in the language already, it might be, to Ruth's point, I would just make one minor adjustment to the language to say that, that we're submitting a letter with attachments. And that might be in there, but I'm not sure.
It says, I have
Does
the
it say there?
final sentence, further supporting material is provided.
Okay, super, okay.
And then obviously, staff will send the letter to planning, or you're gonna send it, or?
I'm sure, I think we could probably handle it like we're doing Monty's, except his is going to council where basically you guys approve the language. I could put it on letterhead that would say like the commission's name at the top, and then I could send it over and CC probably whoever the chair is at the end of this, I'll probably CC
Okay,
the chair on.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I call for the vote for all in favor of submitting the letter with attachments that Glenn has just described and in the wording that we have for this. All approve, all those who approve the commission sending this letter? And all opposed? Okay, I think I should have raised my hand for approved. So we have one opposed, and the motion does pass. So we will send this letter. You'll work with Ann to get the letter, to get this done. Okay, great, awesome, all right, fantastic. Let's see where we're at here. Moving on to the next item of business, which is new business. Now we're in new business. We're going to talk about the zero waste element update. And we have, it's Valerie, and hello Valerie, and I think you have a colleague as well.
Okay.
Hi. They're both going to talk about the zero waste element update, and this is, I believe, for discussion only.
Great, well,
And also, let me ask you the same thing, Valerie, would you like to do your presentation and hold questions until the end, or have intervening questions?
preferably hold questions till the end.
Okay,
Quite possibly might get to that question in a subsequent slide.
great.
Great, you ready?
Fantastic, yes, thank you, please do.
Thanks for having us. Valerie Osmond, I'm with the Environmental Services Department. I'm the Deputy Director of the Integrated Waste Management Division. And joining me tonight is Jorge Luna, who's one of our environmental services specialists with my team. So I had heard these questions kind of trickling in from the commission about solid waste, garbage and recycling, and how it impacts climate. And so we thought we'd come to you and share not just about the zero waste element, but about our program as a whole. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the Environmental Services Department implements a wide variety of waste management programs that serve San Jose's community. We provide solid waste collection, processing, and disposal services to about 1 million residents and 8,000 business accounts. We manage an annual program budget of about $300 million and have about 36 full-time staff. We lead the way towards zero waste, and we're one of the first to implement curbside recycling back in 1985 and have a reputation as an environmental leader. You go to the next slide. Our recycling infrastructure, we have a very high number of solid waste facilities in Santa Clara County, and nearly all of them are in the city of San Jose. And this benefits our programs in the community. The proximity of these facilities help keep our greenhouse gas emissions associated with the transportation of material low and provides local employment. Next slide. On the residential side of things, our single-family program has some really unique features. We have year-round unlimited loose-in-the-street yard trimming collection and unlimited recycling collection and unlimited large item junk pickup collection at no additional cost to our residents. Back in 2008, we started to phase in garbage sorting and processing by one of our contracted haulers. And what they do is they sort through everybody's garbage. It's in the black garbage carts, and they recover any recyclables, and they pull out all the organics, so food waste, compostable paper, things like that, and all of that is composted. That's already addressing things like short-lived climate pollutants and keeps that material out of landfills. Other jurisdictions are still sort of struggling to implement their own similar programs. Next slide, please. On the multifamily side of things, we serve about 119,000, almost 120,000 units over 3,400 complexes. So that's apartments, condominiums, townhomes. We've also been processing garbage with multifamily as well. And they also receive free and unlimited junk pickups. Next slide. So because we do have a lot of slides, I'm kind of skimming through them pretty quickly, and then we can delve a little deeper if there's interest. On our commercial program, we have about 10,000 businesses and 8,000 accounts associated with those businesses. Prior to 2012, the commercial solid waste program was through a non-exclusive franchise hauler program, meaning that there were multiple haulers that businesses could choose from, which meant there were all sorts of trucks going all over San Jose, some, multiple different haulers even going to the same shopping center. So in 2012, we shifted over to an exclusive franchise hauler system, which sort of streamlined the services that were offered. And it greatly increased the diversion rate, which is the amount of material that was being kept out of landfill. It went from 22% in the non-exclusive franchise system and increased greatly to when we shifted over to the franchise system. Unique to our commercial solid waste program, Republic Services does the collection, and they initiated a very unique wet-dry system. So it sorts waste by wet, which is identified as that organic food waste, food scraps, compostable, contaminated papers, and cardboard. So there's a wet bins, and then there's also dry. So dry means kind of garbage and recycling, so everything else. If a business has a high amount of one type of material, they'll have customized bins, which help keep that material sort of single stream, keeps that material nice and clean. So kind of a unique collection system. And then all of the wet material goes to the Zero Waste Energy Development Company. And that is one of the first dry anaerobic digestion facilities in the United States. There have since been others built, but it was one of the first and one of the largest. And at that facility, they take that organics and turn it into energy and compost. Next slide, please. This is just kind of a high-level look at our commercial and residential and citywide programs of diversion. Again, that's keeping material out of the landfill. So you can kind of see some generally good trends. These are well-performing programs. There have been a few drop-offs. You can kind of pandemic-related drop-offs that we saw. There was also some contract renegotiations around 2020, 2021 that did impact some diversion rates, and now we're starting to see those go back up. The commercial program, which is blue, the blue line there, we did see kind of a steep drop-off, and we're working with that contractor to get those diversion numbers back up. Let's see, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. One of the things that we've really been battling, particularly on the residential side, is recycling contamination. So that's things in recycling carts that aren't supposed to be there. Either it's garbage or food and liquids that contaminate the good recycling. So we've been doing a lot of outreach, using a lot of different tactics, multilingual approaches. One of the things that we've done recently, just back in August, hopefully all of you got yours, we sent out a residential garbage and recycling guide, a really comprehensive guide to all of our single family and multifamily residents so that they've got kind of this handy information all in one place. Next slide, please. We've done a few pilots to try to get that recycling contamination down. The first one was in spring 2021, where we installed these in mold labels, so they're not stickers. They're actually molded into the lid. Very colorful, lots of graphics, not a lot of text. The little amount of text that we do have is trilingual. And we've continued to add more of these lids throughout the city. So we did see some recycling contamination go down. And it's important because we are contractually obligated to measure the recycling contamination every 2 years. And that drives how much we compensate our recycling haulers. So their compensation goes up if the recycling contamination is really high because it costs them a lot more to sort through that waste and then dispose of it. So in 2020, fall of 2020, we did a recycling contamination study, and a lot of us were working and schooling from home. So a lot of the waste was staying home with us, and we were a little shocked by our recycling contamination numbers, which came in at 51%. So that meant citywide, half of what was in recycling carts was garbage. So pretty disappointing. In 2022, we ran that study again. We do this every other year. And we were really hoping with all this outreach and various other things that we've been working on to see that number come down. And unfortunately, it went up to 57%. So still over half of the material is garbage. So we're continuing to do different tactic and pilot projects to try to bring that number down and reduce the cost of recycling. Next slide. Larger garbage cart pilot is another pilot project that we launched in 2022. So this aimed at the idea of if 85% of our single family residents have the smallest size garbage cart, does that mean that they don't have enough garbage capacity and they're just putting their extra garbage directly into the recycling cart? So let's test that theory a little bit. If they had larger garbage carts, would their recycling be cleaner? So we deployed about 4,000 carts at no cost. We do charge by the size of the garbage cart, which we think might be a deterrent to keep them getting the cart size that they need. So we put out about 4,000 of those carts and measured how much the recycling contamination went down, and it did go down. It didn't go down significantly, so it was kind of inconclusive. What we've done this year is deploy another 4,000 larger garbage carts in other parts of the city to gather more data and learn more from this pilot. So we're hoping to continue to see those numbers go down. Next slide. And then most recently, back in March, we started this contamination and recycling tagging project. So we've got a team of people out in the field right now, early in the morning, every morning, going along routes, looking in cart lids, or lifting the lid and looking in the carts. They're not removing contents, they're not digging around, they're really just doing a visual assessment of what they can see and leaving feedback at the cart. So they're leaving an oops tag or a good job tag. So either way, whatever they see out in the field, they're getting feedback on that. This has been a really good public engagement piece. It's getting a lot of attention. We are right in the middle of doing our 2024 recycling contamination study right now. Those results will be back in a couple months, and we'll see how much this program has impacted recycling contamination. So we're really excited about the results on that. All right. So why is zero waste important? I'm sure many of you may already be engaged in all these zero waste ideas. When the council adopted the Climate Smart San Jose Plan in 2018, solid waste was identified as a topic for future research and incorporation. So it's not currently in the Climate Smart Plan. And in 2021, solid waste contributed about 6% of the total community-wide emissions. So it's a rather small portion of the overall greenhouse gas emissions. The Integrated Waste Management Division, part of Environmental Services Department, has a zero waste strategic plan from 2008. We have made a couple updates to it over the years, but we are doing a much larger update to it, and we are refocusing it on greenhouse gas emissions, and it will become part of the Climate Smart Plan. This update is going to align with the Paris Agreement and the community-wide carbon neutrality goal for 2030. The zero waste element is going to build on the commitments and identifies the policies, programs, and infrastructure needed to achieve the goals. Some of the things of concern are landfill capacity. So we have several landfills within Santa Clara County that are slated to close in the next 20 or so years. We aim to increase our diversion from landfills so that we reduce waste generation to conserve landfill capacity. Preserving local landfill capacity can be achieved by preventing waste, recycling, composting, and recovering as much waste as possible. When these landfills close, waste disposal costs and greenhouse gas emissions will likely increase significantly, particularly due to the need to transport waste further away from San Jose and the general area. We also have long-term contracts with our existing haulers in both the residential and commercial side of things. Our contracts go until 2032 on the commercial side and 2036 on the residential side. So in the next few years, we'll begin working on requests for proposal for new long-term contracts. And the zero waste element that we're working on, we will be looking at longer term goals that we will tackle with those new contracts. Next slide, please. So this is a zero waste hierarchy. What we want to do is avoid sending waste to landfills by waste prevention and creating products that are less wasteful and prioritizing conservation. Progression is the best use from lowest use, and waste prevention at the top and landfilling at the bottom. We are working to prioritize programs that reduce waste and set goals to reduce waste to landfills, as I mentioned in the previous slide, and reduce the overall amount of waste generated in San Jose. So still a focus on recycling, but shifting a bit more to waste reduction as a whole. Next slide, please. So the zero waste element overview. The zero waste element is near final, so we have kind of a final draft. It is posted online. You're able to access it and look at it if you haven't already. And it outlines 13 strategies and actions across 6 focus areas that will, when implemented, will reduce greenhouse gases to make strides towards zero waste. The city expects that all strategies will positively impact the climate and the city's waste generation and diversion goals. And the program, the zero waste element as a whole, is focused on the programs that are in the Integrated Waste Management Program. So those are ratepayer-funded programs, so commercial and residential. It does not tap into every piece of garbage or every waste stream. So we're not looking at litter, illegal dumping, encampment trash, those sort of things. It's really focused in on our ratepayer programs. We did a lot of community engagement back in January and February of 2024. We requested feedback and questions on the zero waste element in 3 different ways. We did an online open house portal, an online community survey, and we held a virtual community meeting. So in that community meeting, we did an overview presentation, had a virtual comment board, took live questions, and then did breakout rooms with the participants. So we got a lot of good engagement with the public and various other stakeholders. Next slide. So I think I'm gonna skip over this one for the sake of saving a little time. And then I mentioned that we are going to look at long-term goals and those sort of future contracts that are still several years out. But what can people tangibly do now, whether at home, as a resident, or as a business? So these are just some of the areas that we're focusing the zero waste element on. So repairing, reusing, buying, used, renting, borrowing, composting, all these sorts of things, rather than buying new, which has a much larger impact on the environment. Reusable foodware versus single use. And then the next slide is a zero waste playbook for the workplace. So encouraging our local businesses to purchase items with recycled content, again, getting away from that single use foodware, having a good recycling at work program, donating edible food, and then, as I mentioned earlier, all the commercial solid waste, that organic material is already collected separately and turned into energy. So when you see things like this, where it's just garbage and recycling and no organics collection, that's because we already collect and separate that. Next slide. All right, so what's next for Integrated Waste Management team and the zero waste element? We're still, as mentioned, working on reducing recycling contamination. We have a construction and demolition program. We're working on updating that. We're doing some big programmatic improvements there. Senate Bill 1383, which focuses on short-lived climate pollutants and getting those out of the landfill. We're continuing implementation there. San Jose is, I think, very far ahead of the curve compared to most other jurisdictions, where we are already sorting out organic material out of the residential and commercial, and then there's some other areas where we're still working on implementation. And then, of course, getting the zero waste element adopted. So we're hoping to go to T&E and to council in the next 6 to 12 months or so. And Jorge and I are happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Do you have, what do you consider, it's a 2-part question, what do you consider to be your biggest contributors for greenhouse gases?
Since we're already diverting most of our organics from landfill, it's not that. I think that would be true for other jurisdictions. Our haulers are, for the most part, with their vehicles already using biodiesel and clean natural gas. So we're not, it's not a huge contributor. So in general, solid waste has not been a big contributor in San Jose to greenhouse gas emissions.
So my second question then is, what do you have a measure of how well you're pulling out food waste out of the garbage stream? How do you know how successful that is?
Yes, so we have a contractor that does all that work for us at a material recovery facility. So they're certainly sorting through the recycling stream that comes in, and then separately we have a mixed waste stream of garbage, essentially, where they're pulling out the organics. They send all that to the Z-Best facility in Gilroy for composting, and they do generally measure we call it residue. So everything that's left over after that, we take a look at that and see how successful were they in getting the recyclables out and the organics out. And it's a pretty high degree rate of success. And the nice thing about, we call it back-end sorting, or this garbage processing. The really nice thing about that is if you have friends and family that live in other cities that don't offer this, we're one of the very few that do. They have to separate that stuff out and keep it out of their garbage can, right? So you've got a bin on your kitchen counter, under your kitchen sink or something. You're collecting that stuff throughout the week, probably putting it in with yard trimmings or some other collection system. Some residents don't love doing that, and so the participation rate can be very low. We had run a pilot program for that in small parts of San Jose to see what the participation rate would be. That was several years ago. Very, very low participation. And by doing what we do, it means that everybody participates, and the effort on the part of the resident is, there's no effort involved. So it's good.
Oh, Tracy, go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about e-waste and how that's different these years compared to 10 years ago?
I can speak to e-waste and household hazardous waste in that we have a program with the county. It's a free drop-off program. You schedule an appointment and it's a drive-through, kind of touchless. Even prior to COVID, it was a touchless program. You drive in, pop your trunk or what have you, and they remove it for you at no cost. I don't have any data or measurements on it. It's a county-wide program, but yes, try to make it as accessible and free as possible. So it reaches a lot of residents. It has a pretty high rate of participation, so that's good. We get a lot of appointments that come in.
So you don't see any coming in the mixed waste?
I'm sorry?
You don't see any e-waste that are coming in mixed waste?
We do, yeah. So we try to do a lot of outreach and communication to try to get people to dispose of e-waste and household hazardous waste appropriately. Unfortunately, we still do see that show up in garbage and recycling. We have our free and unlimited junk pickup program, which does collect not household hazardous waste at the curb, but it will collect some of our e-waste like televisions and things like that.
And Letitia, you had a question.
I'm just curious if the waste hauler for San Jose applies any fees for contamination. I work for Green Waste of Palo Alto as the outreach coordinator, and we apply fees to commercial businesses if they, have food waste in their recycling bin. It just gives more incentive for them to be in compliance with the Senate Bill 1383. So I'm curious if, Green Tech, I think it is.
We've not taken that approach yet. So currently we are taking the outreach and education approach in the forms of the different types of outreach that I shared, and more specifically those tags that we're leaving now is a point of contact.
Mm-hmm.
So not just a postcard in the mail that we send to everybody, but at your cart you're getting direct feedback.
I see.
We used to have a non-collection notice that the hauler could leave, and they could leave it as a warning, or they could actually leave it and not collect that cart.
Right.
At this point, with our current contracts, we only do that in the event that there's household hazardous waste that's seen. So they won't collect household hazardous waste if they see it in the cart. Otherwise, they're sort of compelled to pick up.
Thank you.
I had a question. Is the contamination percent subtracted out of the diversion percentage that you presented or factored into that in any way?
It's a little different. So we are always looking at diversion across all of our programs, and they're all, measured independently, and then all those numbers feed up to each other. This study that we do every other year is very different than how we measure our diversion. We have a third-party consultant on site, and they're taking a sample from each route in San Jose. So there's hundreds of routes throughout the city. They take a sample, like a pile. I can't remember how many pounds it is off the top of my head.
It's like a ton, or can't remember.
Yeah. And they actually pick through each and every piece of material one by one, and they sort it into, this is recycling, this is not recycling, and then they weigh it. So the contamination level is really by weight. So there's a lot of film plastic, a lot of styrofoam, which is going to be lighter, and then you've got other things like large items that somehow make their way in there. Food is heavier, wood, all sorts of different things that end up in there that shouldn't, that weigh more. So it's by weight, and it's just entirely different process. So the numbers are gonna be quite different. And it's really just a glimpse in time, that week, that day, that one little pile that got pulled out of a route that might have 700 to 1,000 homes on it. So.
When you've done these studies, is there certain type of garbage that's going into the recycles? Is it more of the, like the, to-go food containers? They all have a different number. Is it people just throw everything in there? Or?
It's a little bit of everything. I mean, it's tough when you're measuring by weight, right? Because there's things like styrofoam and film plastic that don't weigh hardly anything. You see a ton of film plastics. Film plastics we try to keep out of recycling because, and they're not really recyclable for us. When they go through those material recovery facilities, they get tangled up in the machinery and they have to stop the machinery and untangle things. We get a lot of bagged garbage, which makes me think that people are just putting bags of garbage in their recycling because their garbage cart is full. And it is expensive to upsize your cart. So if you call and you say, gosh, I am producing a lot of extra garbage, I wanna get more garbage capacity, and we tell you it's gonna cost you double, it can be, cost prohibitive to people. So we're looking at, how can we change the rate structure so that the increases aren't quite so large. And alternatively, you can go to any of our San Jose public libraries, Lucky stores, Safeway, and downstairs and buy extra garbage stickers. So if people are having Thanksgiving holiday parties and you've got an extra bag of garbage, slap a sticker on there. I think they're about $6.25. And you can set out the extra bag of garbage. So it's a lot more cost effective than upsizing your garbage cart. But yeah, lots of bags of garbage. Those are definitely heavier. And then, like I said, anytime somebody puts a half a can of soda or, a jar of spaghetti sauce that's got a little bit left, when that stuff spills, it contaminates what's in that cart. When it goes in the truck, it contaminates what's in the truck. And now you've got all your, boxes that you get with all your Amazon shipments, and they're all covered in spaghetti sauce and not recyclable. So it sort of grows.
Okay, thank you.
Valerie, thank you. I think very insightful. I think we probably we still got a ways to go, so.
Trying to talk fast.
Glenn, unless you have a really important question, we'll move on. Are you okay? Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was very,
Thank you.
very interesting. Thank you. So I think we have San Jose Clean Energy Programs Roadmap to discuss. And yeah, with Kate, do you have that?
Yes, hi, Kate Ziemba, Senior Environmental Program Manager, and I'm with,
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Josh Chenin. Been with the city for about 5 or so months. I've been in energy and transportation electrification consulting for the last 8 or 9 years, and I'm excited to be here.
he leads transportation electrification programs for San Jose Clean Energy, and that's what we're here to talk to you about today.
So I'm going to ask the same question I've asked everyone else. Would you like to hold questions, or do you want them during your prezo?
Hold if,
Okay,
unless it's a
okay.
clarifying.
Super.
So today we're going to give you some background on our customer programs. We'll go over the current programs we're offering and then give you a preview of what we're considering recommending to the City Council for fiscal year 25-26 and a deep dive on our vehicle electrification programs. So San Jose Clean Energy's role in the city's carbon neutrality goal is to provide a carbon-free electricity supply. We're on track to offer carbon neutral energy as a base product by 2030. And so if we electrify buildings and transportations, that can reduce San Jose's emissions by 82%. And the role San Jose Clean Energy programs have is to incentivize residents and businesses to electrify. Next slide, please. So in 2019, basically the year San Jose Clean Energy launched service is when we started working on programs. We conducted a 2-year stakeholder engagement process to develop our programs roadmap, which charts the next years of the programs we're going to offer. In 2021, that was adopted by the City Council. And in general, our programs fall into these 6 categories here. Next slide, please. The program's roadmap also outlined our program guiding principles. So of course, a big principle is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, aligning with Climate Smart. But what's a little bit unique about San Jose is our city's emphasis on promoting equity, increasing affordability, and supporting our priority communities. Next slide, please. And so in order to determine the types of programs we want to recommend to the City Council, we developed a program scoring framework. And so we looked at what other implementers and utilities are using and then aligned it with our program guiding principles and developed these weighted metrics. The most highly weighted metrics are greenhouse gas emission reductions and investment in our priority communities. And then on top of that, we also have qualitative considerations like resiliency and serving all of our customer segments. Next slide, please. We also factor in community input. So we are constantly listening to the community to understand what the barriers they are experiencing in adopting clean energy technologies and also what their energy concerns are. And so earlier this year, we conducted an online survey and some focus groups. And here are some of the things we heard. Obviously, the cost of energy bills is top of mind for folks, as is power outages and climate change. We heard cost is a really big barrier. And so we're constantly listening and then fine-tuning our programs. We also have a staff member who's focused on building relationships with community-based organizations and community leaders so that we can engage them early on in the program design process. And then this is what we're currently offering for programs. This fiscal year, our programs cost are $12 million. About almost half of that is externally funded. The gray programs are ones that are closing out. So to start with vehicle electrification, we have 3 programs that incentivize the installation of EV chargers around the city at multifamily properties, public places, and then we have a fast charging hubs pilot that will install fast chargers at city community centers and libraries. We also have an EV education program that Josh will talk more about later. Then for building electrification, we are weeks away from launching 2 big programs, a rebate program for heat pump water heaters and heat pump HVAC systems, and a payment plan program that offers a no interest payment plan for terms of 5 years and up to $5,000. And so we'll be alerting residents through our newsletter when these programs launch in early December. And then for distributed energy resources, we have a program called Solar Access that's funded by the California Public Utilities Commission. It offers low-income customers 20% off their energy bill and 100% solar energy. And then we have 3 programs that are focused on incentivizing customers to use energy at different times of day, particularly in the middle of the day when there's a lot of renewable energy on the grid. And so they are peak rewards that pays customers to shift their energy on critical days of the year for the grid. We have a super off-peak rate pilot that we just launched in August that incentivizes customers to charge their EV from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then we have a telematics-based managed charging program that we're about to launch that connects with the cars, with the EV's system and automatically shifts when it's going to charge, and then we compensate customers for that. And then for energy efficiency programs, we have 2 CPUC-funded programs that are ending in December. One has served businesses with HVAC and refrigeration upgrades, and the other is a residential program for income-qualified customers to buy energy-efficient home appliances. And then finally, we have our SJ Cares rate discount that offers 10% off energy bills for low-income customers and customers living in affordable housing. And then there are 2 cross-cutting initiatives that we're working on right now: permit streamlining for EV chargers, heat pumps, and then reach codes. And then this is just a snapshot of the impact for our current programs. Through the end of 2023, they've saved 18 million kilowatt hours of electricity, 2,300 metric tons of carbon dioxide, and about 29 million in customer savings. And with that, I'll pass it to Josh.
Cool, thanks, Kate. So Kate just walked us through kind of where we've been this current fiscal year, and I'm gonna look forward to the 2025-2026 fiscal year to talk to you about our recommendations. So you'll see we have the same kind of columns listed here. You'll see energy efficiency is no longer listed because those programs are shutting down. The programs listed, kind of shown in blue here, are the new programs that we're recommending for 25-26. So on the vehicle electrification side of things, we have an EV incentive program along with an EV concierge kind of support hotline and email service for our customers. I'll do a little deep dive into vehicle electrification right after this. And then on the building electrification side, we have heat pump education to kind of match the vehicle electrification or the EV education that we currently have, along with a building electrification concierge as well. And finally, the last new program is the leaf blowers. We still are kind of in the middle of doing some more outreach and we're looking to get some more feedback. So this might get bumped to the next fiscal year, but we'll kind of see how things go. One thing I want to note is that you'll see the cost here is at 10.5 million. So this looks like it's $1.5 million less than what we're paying in the current fiscal year. But what has actually happened is we've lost a lot of the external funding. So this, although this looks like 1.5 million less, this is actually about 50% more ratepayer funds than what we were previously spending.
Some of which are rolling over from
the previous year. That's correct. Great. Next slide. Awesome. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the electric vehicle incentive programs that we look to launch next year. First is a point of sale EV incentive program. So this is where customers go to registered car dealerships and receive a incentive as a discount when they purchase or lease a new or used car. So any San Jose resident that San Jose Clean Energy resident would be able to just go to a registered dealer. That discount is applied as a point of sale rebates right on their sales contract or lease agreement. You'd see a San Jose Clean Energy discount taken off right there. We're looking to promote higher incentives for customers who are in our priority communities or environmental justice communities. And I'll talk a little bit more about opportunities with the EV incentive in a couple of slides. Next up is the EV charger assistance expansion. Can we stay on the slide for a sec? So we just launched a few weeks ago an EV charger assistance pilot at multifamily properties. Multifamily properties have a big barrier. Customers living in multifamily properties have the largest barrier because most of them don't have any access to charging where they live. For those of us lucky enough to live in single family homes or in apartment complexes that have charging, that is something that's solved for us, but most people just don't have that access. So right now we're providing incentives, assisting those property owners in getting EV chargers installed. And this new project, the expansion for next year, will allow us to do another 20 to 30 properties in San Jose, partially funded.
When you say low power, how many amps?
Yeah, so it depends. So what we're doing is low power level 1, low power level 2, and standard level 2 charging stations are incentivized. So a lot of what we see a lot of properties doing is the low power level 1 and low power level 2. So that's kind of like a max of like 30 amps on that level 2.
7 kilowatt.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. And then we have a kind of group of marketing / customer support programs to support those incentive programs we're recommending. I kind of see these as kind of hugging those programs and offering them out to the public. These are the things that are gonna make those other programs that we're recommending successful. First up is an EV concierge service. So this is a email and phone and appointment hotline that customers can call and find out more information. How much does charging cost? How much is my bill going to go up? What does public charging look like? How do I install a charger at my home? Those are all things that they would be able to get answered through this concierge service. This will be really great for our customers and kind of getting them to the finish line of, I know I kind of want to make this decision, but how do I get there? And next up is our EV education. This is something that exists right now, but we don't have a ton of programs to support the education. So what will be great about next year is we will have this education that will then drive people to participate in programs that help them make that transformation into driving an EV. All of our education is going to be offered multilingual in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. It'll include ride and drives, education sessions, listening sessions, and really great ways for us to get involved in the community and the community to get involved in the programs that we're implementing. Next slide. And lastly, something I wanted to mention, right now with the new federal administration coming in, there's a lot of federal funds that are currently at risk. Specifically here, I'm talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, federal tax credits on EVs. Right now, all Americans are eligible, people who live here are eligible for $7,500 off the purchase or lease of new EVs. And that, from what we've heard, is likely to go away come end of January, beginning of February, which means specifically for priority customers, EVs will be a lot less accessible, especially low-cost leases, which are currently available today. So there may be an opportunity for the city to step in and provide some additional funding to for this funding that is going away at the federal level. We are keeping track to hear what CARB is doing, what the state's doing, to see if they're bringing back any of the state programs to kind of fill that space. But we are kind of looking at what would it look like if we increase our incentives for next year on the EV incentive program to fill that spot and make sure that EVs in San Jose continue to be affordable for everybody. Great, yeah, next slide. Yeah, and so I wanted to show the impacts of our recommended programs for 25-26. These are pretty impressive in my opinion. So 117,000 metric tons of CO2 avoided, which is equal to 2.4% of the community-wide emissions in 2021. And I think the most impressive one here is almost $60,000, or I guess it's actually, I don't say, it's closer to $50,000, $50 million in customer bill savings, which is significantly higher than the bill savings people receive just by participating in San Jose Clean Energy as a service. So the small investment of, $10.5 million of leads to almost, 50 million in customer bill savings, along with the other bill savings they have by using our service rather than PG&E. Zach.
But Josh, just to, so for example, the incentive on an EV, 2,500, is that something like that?
Something like that.
So this is counting that $2,500 expenditure, assuming that that is sort of the tipping point, that translates into a sale of an EV. Right?
Sure.
Right. I'm not saying it's dishonest, I just want to be clear.
I guess I shouldn't have said customer bill saving, customer savings. So this looks at when that $2,500 gets that person to switch from gas to electric, they're saving on vehicle maintenance over the lifetime of that vehicle. They're saving on gasoline because their electricity is cheaper than paying for gasoline, and other savings. Their bill will actually go up because they're using electricity instead of gas. But yes, thanks. I'll pass to Kate to wrap us up.
Thanks. So that concludes our presentation. So we'd love to take questions, and then we intend to have a recommendation from the commission that we'll put into our council memo in April. And so here is a draft here, but I think we have a Word doc for you to work on. Yeah. So any questions?
You go first.
Back to the 117,000 tons, when to date we're at 2.3 thousand tons. So we're doing 50 times greater in the next 2 years because of what?
The vehicle electrification programs, the EV incentive.
So how many tons per vehicle?
No, just, so that's the lifetime.
That's lifetime. So if you look at
Lifetime,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So if you look
Well,
at
the
a
other's not
vehicle
lifetime?
lifetime of 15 years, for example, that sale of that vehicle will contribute to that greenhouse gas reduction over the lifetime of the product or that measure. And we look at all of the measures as a lifetime product.
But the 2.3 wasn't, 2,300 was that lifetime or not?
I think it did, but it was, yeah.
All right, but it's electric, it's vehicles.
Basically.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you have to have some idea of what's the emission rate for the electricity that's charging it.
Excuse me?
Well,
We use our emissions factor.
okay, and what is it?
Our emissions factor this year is,
It's low, it's about 50 pounds, 50 pounds CO2 per megawatt hour.
Thank you.
maybe that's per
That's-
kilowatt hour.
that's
maybe it's
pretty-
50 cents, yeah, 50, I'll pull it up, sorry. Okay,
Thank you.
units, yeah. Oh, go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to clarify, the point of sale incentive, Zach just said it's $2,500?
We're still playing around with incentive amounts and trying to figure out what we're gonna offer as the standard incentive to all San Jose Clean Energy customers versus what the priority customers, either low income or those who live in disadvantaged communities would receive. We're figuring out what that kind of looks like. We're figuring out what we might want to reach to if those federal tax credits go away.
Okay.
So those are all still being finalized. And by the
Okay.
time we present this to council next year, we're hoping to have all that
And
finalized.
then, and then you've like, probably when you do the memo, you'll put in about, depending on what you end up with, how much you would have for the $10.5 million, which includes other things, and then I guess it's like the state one that they used to have, which is when they run out of money, but I think they never did run out of money, annually. Sounds good.
Yeah, our current model right now is looking at around 1,700 cars going through the program,
Okay,
of which around 650 would be cars to folks living in priority communities or who are low income.
okay. Sounds good.
What's the outlook for the super off-peak program?
So we just got the first set of results. It looks like about 10% of customers were actively switching over with just having received an introductory email to it. So we think with more outreach and more touches, we could get that up.
Do you think we'll be able to sustain the program?
I suspect there will be a version of it. I don't, right now, it's 100% sweetener. There's no stick. So I predict it may be that there becomes a little bit of a stick, that, a little bit more of a ratchet of a higher peak to sort of offset the much lower super off peak.
It would be in the peak. Let's try to.
I don't know if it's the peak or the
Ratchet.
off peak, but yeah, somewhere. And I don't know that it would be trying to exactly be revenue neutral, maybe not as much of a giveaway. But I think we're really bullish on the power of the rates, and so.
Are you seeing, sorry, I can't remember, do people have to opt into this or is it automatic in the EL?
We opt people in. So
You opt
people
people
who go into the ELEC rate plan get opted into the pilot, except for if they have legacy solar, NOM 1, NOM 2. But new solar customers get opted in.
Solar,
Because we
Solar.
don't want them to be, their sell back at those really high rates. We don't want to get in the way of that.
I understand, but you're taking new solar customers and putting them into this super off-peak?
Correct.
Not non-solar?
And non-solar. So you can enroll in.
Isn't the solar guys losing money? If they do
Well,
that?
a new solar customer on net billing tariff, it factors, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it factors it, like it already factors in the cost of electricity on the grid, so we feel like they're gonna be okay with this kind of rate adjustment. For ELEC, if you have a heat pump, if you have a battery storage system,
Right.
or an
Those-
EV, you can still enroll.
I would have thought, okay, think about it. I would have thought non-solar folks would want to go into this. Okay. Second question, on the Cal EVIP program, what's the outlook, or can you give a little more detail on that?
Yes, so I think we have 29 DC fast chargers and 185 level 2 installed so far.
29 already. Are these individual or individual?
Ports.
Ports, okay,
Ports, yes.
ports, okay.
And then that's
How many-
going,
is it like a few hubs, or
they're throughout the city, multifamily, we've seen them at gas stations, hotels, yeah, workplaces.
fast chargers at multifamily?
Well, the level 2s are at multifamily.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but the fast chargers, we've seen them at gas stations
Gas stations,
and commercial shopping centers.
what
Um,
gas stations?
Which gas stations?
Is it Shell or?
Usually Rotten Robbie.
Okay, well, didn't know.
But that program is going to officially close. So it closed to new applications in June, and then it'll totally sunset in September. So there's still some projects in San Jose that have yet to be completed, but they're working to get it done by September.
Last question. The fund, you guys mentioned funding on the 10.5 million, you mentioned there was loss of funding.
Yes.
What happened?
So this year, this fiscal year, we had about 5.5 million of external funding. Most of that is our energy efficiency programs, and those are in a 3-year cycle, and that cycle ends in
Okay,
December.
So it was known,
Yeah, we knew.
known cutoff.
Yeah.
And now we're studying how to, if we want to get a new round of funding from the California Public Utilities Commission for energy efficiency.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes.
Any?
Do all of the San Jose Clean Energy incentive programs use the same definition, same qualification for environmental justice community?
That's a great question. Right now, no. What we do is we look at each program and figure out what is the best customer segment that we're trying to serve with this program. Some programs are specific to multifamily, and multifamily within, Justice 40 or disadvantaged communities or hard to reach customers might look different. And maybe one actually wouldn't be a good fit for multifamily at a multifamily targeted program. So we try to make sure that the definition of priority community or environmental justice community best fits the program design that we're putting out there. So right now you might see a program with multiple definitions. Like I think our heat pump program that's launching has multiple definitions that you might be able to fit under in order to receive enhanced incentives.
And then for the EV program in particular, does that use these 3 criteria listed here?
Right now, we're looking at Justice 40 as being our kind of geographic eligibility requirements. We're also looking at income to see if we do an income program. We're running multiple models to see like what % of the city would be covered depending on what model we choose, what % of residents, and trying to pick the best version that will best serve those customer segments.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Would someone like to submit a motion for the recommendation based on the recommendation language that SJCE has?
I move we accept that.
Accept the language?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. And Glenn second, Ruth makes a motion, Glenn seconds. And are there any comments or discussions based on the motion? No, good, all right. So all in favor of the recommendation language submitted, in favor of the recommendation language submitted to, who's it submitted to? To the council or?
This is in T&E.
To transportation and environment, all right, thank you. And any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you guys
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Very
Really
insightful.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, if there's, I think we're headed to, just a couple little more things to do. And the next, this is my swan song here. We're now going to do the election of the chair and vice chair for the upcoming year. And what I'd like to do is have nominations for the vice chair first. And then we'll do nominations for the chair. And that has to do with sort of how the sort of the rules and requirements for how when we make a shift of the chair. And so I'll run it through that process, and then the new chair will instantly take over and finish the meeting out after that. That's why I'm doing it that way. So is there, would someone like to nominate either yourself or someone else on the commission as vice chair? Any nominations for vice chair? And this is a great learning experience for the vice chair. This could be, one of the new members if you'd like to fill that role. This is a great opportunity to learn.
I nominate Glenn for vice chair.
Who are you nominating?
Glenn,
Glenn Garfunkel?
vice chair.
As vice chair?
Sorry,
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
gonna decline. I got my hands full.
I nominate Tracy for vice chair.
I was gonna nominate Tracy for chair, but.
Would you like to chair? Vice chair, I mean?
I do not think I'm experienced enough for that.
Sorry?
I do not think I'm experienced enough for that.
I
It's
guess
my
that's
first
a
go-around.
Sure you are, sure you are.
That's a no.
I think you're fine.
Manny, I'd like to nominate you for vice chair. Are you willing to do that?
No, I'm
No?
I decline as well.
Nominate Lucia for vice chair?
Yeah.
It's, vice chair's pretty easy.
You end up moving to Seattle.
Pretty easy, as long as the chair's here.
Well, I'm gonna nominate myself for vice chair, so I don't fall into the
Okay,
chair.
Exactly. All right, we have I think based on what I've seen right now, I think we'll go with the Phil's nomination of himself for vice chair. And is there any discussion, any comments, any thoughts? Then let's, everyone in favor of Phil filling the vice chair position in 2025? Raise your hand. Any opposed? You are now vice chair, Phil. Thank you. Yay. Okay, now for the now for the chair.
How about Bill?
Build it, yeah, I know.
Is there anyone who would love to yourself be chair for 2025 or would like to nominate someone to that post? You're nominating me?
Who said she's nominating Ruth?
Oh, Ruth.
No, I've done it before. Decline.
Yeah.
Can we nominate somebody who's not here, or do you want to do it again?
I've been there and done that. I'm happy to see someone.
You're talented.
So are we allowed to nominate Karen again, or
We should nominate
consecutive
Karen
terms?
again. I think we can nominate Karen again.
I have to call my husband and ask him. I'm kidding, just kidding. Is there anyone else that would really love to be, this is a great opportunity to learn, and I'll help you.
Tracy, I think you should step up to the plate.
Would you like to be
Yeah.
chair?
We're an easy audience. you
Yeah.
know. We're pretty forgiving.
I think we should nominate Karen again.
Oh, boy.
You've done a great job.
Are you sure I have? I'm not sure about that. I'm gonna have to get feedback from everyone.
Try to nominate Karen.
I
I second that.
Oh, boy.
Shall we
Okay,
take a
I'm
vote?
gonna tell my husband you twisted my arm on that. Well, thank you. That's very, very kind of you to trust me enough for another year.
Shall we vote?
Any other nominations? I am gonna call you. I'm not kidding about that. I want better feedback. Okay. I'm stunned. All those in favor of Karen Nelson taking on the chair position for 2025? And all opposed? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I guess Karen Nelson is now chair for another year. Thank you, guys. That's very, very kind of you. I appreciate that. All right, well then I guess I'm not handing this over to somebody else. Let me say too, though, it has been a real learning experience and I still have more to learn. And I still know that I don't always follow I've got these crib sheets. I don't know if you've all noticed my crib sheets. I don't even always follow them. And so anyway, but I am trying. But I'm going to ask for your help going forward. So I think what we've got now is just the final wrap up to sort of finish the meeting. So first of all, are there any potential agenda items for the next meeting that you would like to have added? Yeah, Manny.
I would like to add an agenda item relating to a recommendation regarding the installation of artificial turf at a city-supported project in the county fairgrounds. what would be the best way for me to go forward with that to get it onto next meeting's agenda?
So to like draft a recommendation
Mhm.
letter, if you wanna draft some language and send it to me, we can make sure that it's on the agenda for the next week.
Great. And also for myself, and I'll make sure we talk about, I want, the January meeting is set for me to do the review of the cool roof report that I'd like to have delivered to either the Transportation Committee first or the Environmental Department, however that process is most appropriate. But I do want to deliver that to the commission for your review and comment in January.
Just a clarifying question. If we do draft up some sort of recommendation, et cetera, and kind of send that your way, and it's not brought up tonight, is that still possible to get that onto the next agenda?
Yeah, the cutoff is basically 1 week prior to the meeting. We need to have everything reflected on the agenda that's gonna be discussed. So you basically, the next meeting is January 16th. So basically 1 week before that is when we have to submit for the Brown Act requirements.
Thanks.
At the discretion of the chair.
Yes, at the
Super, great question. And I want to like rewind back because a person that I didn't thank in my stunned, the fact that I'm doing this again next year is Anne. Anne has been incredibly helpful to me to help me learn and understand and run ideas past her. So I want to thank you, Anne, for all your support. Really wonderful. I really have appreciated it a lot. And yeah.
I just have a comment to make. In future meetings, when we have old business that's us, for example, the Glenn's presentation, could we do all the staff even though it's new business? Because
I was thinking
otherwise,
that tonight.
and just do it, I know at certain times we've like said it, but today I forgot, I think we all forgot, and then we're stuck here, so maybe we can just like, I mean, I know it has to go into old business.
That's right, we did
But
forget
we
that.
We can just discuss at the beginning.
Yeah, and then
Like
we
we
just
did
have to
last
remember, I
meeting. I know,
guess.
yeah.
Okay, because otherwise,
I realized
there's-
that too late into things today.
Yeah.
We should have shown, but yeah. I
Okay,
think that's a
I
good
just
point.
wanna make sure we remember so that they can go home.
Yeah.
Just, what happens with the vacancy on the board?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes, we do need to talk about that.
Yes, so Anthony emailed that his vacancy will be effective November 30th.
Okay.
So at that point, we can advertise, let people know, they can submit applications. I did check with the clerk's office. Unfortunately, the next application submission period does not end until, I believe, March 30th. I can double check the exact date and let you all know, but I think it's the end of March. So it will not be until after March that we would be able to fill the seat.
Does the vacancy count against quorum for future meetings?
So, yeah, it does.
Thank you.
You're right, it counts against, quorum stays the same.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's, we can have less real absence because we have a permanent
Right.
absence,
Yeah.
so the denominator remains unchanged for the
It's,
quorum.
it's,
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Are we allowed to have more than one youth commissioner?
Yeah, so the way the requirements are written are that there must be at least one. So yes, so officially the seat that is being vacated is an expertise seat. So there would have to be some sort of qualifications. I can give you the exact language, but it's a pretty broad area range of expertise. It includes like budget and transportation as well as like energy and power supply and things like that. But I can also provide the exact language for like what that vacancy would need to be filled.
Fantastic. I guess, again, the next regular meeting is, and Anne, when is that? It's
January 16th.
January 16th. Okay, in the same room.
Mhm.
And I'm sort of have a minor request while we're all here. Again, this might be more me because I'm gonna have to get something to hear better. Is it possible to have a microphone in here? Because I would love to have the ability to make sure that everybody can really hear what's being said. And that's really sort of important. And do you think Is that possible to do? Can you look into if it's?
I know the larger conference rooms tend to have like AV equipment, but I've never looked into it for the smaller conference rooms, but we can definitely
Yeah, we'll check it out
look
and
and see.
update you on that.
I mean, I think that would be really, really helpful. And sometimes microphones are sort of mobile, you know, they're the smaller ones, I think. But maybe you guys don't have one of those, but anyway, we'll check.
And just knowing the
I'll
city,
take a
I'm guessing it's gonna be a handheld,
Yeah.
but I don't know for sure.
Just back on the meeting, are people able to go a week earlier on the 9th, January 9th? Because we're planning to bring our rates item to council on February 11th, I believe. And just to make sure that we can incorporate the commission input into that memo, it'd be good to go a little bit earlier. I think the 16th.
What's the deadline for that then?
Brown Act deadline would be the 2nd, which city office, that's the first day back after
Is that
furlough.
the deadline you're asking about?
No, I don't think so. You're asking for.
For us to be able to give comments
Oh, okay, I see.
Oh, comments.
to,
To move to the 9th.
Yeah, so,
right, mhm.
right, so then,
I'm
yeah,
okay
the
with it.
memos kind of due like on the 17th. So it's a quick turnaround from the 16th.
So it would be our January meeting, really.
That's what I'm trying to say.
That's what
January
you're
the
trying to say,
There's a
okay.
good chance I won't make
December
it.
19th. So we'd have to.
I can make it.
The third week,
Yeah.
January, the first 2 weeks are often not work well for me.
Got it.
But I know your schedule and
I can be
my
here.
effectiveness with these, we know what that is.
So this is outside, yeah.
Be open to a meeting on the 9th? Is that,
On the 9th, that's outside the commission meeting, and I think we would have,
that he's
That would
saying
be
to
the
move?
January
Yeah, so it'd be
Move the
would it be a
commission
special
meeting.
meeting? I
Moving
don't
the
know, but
commission
meeting.
anyway, just
Okay.
having that be the January meeting.
Yeah, I'm available that day.
And does that work for you?
So just to make sure we have, what's the quorum?
The
I
9th
forget.
itself works, but it's more the deadlines associated with the agenda that we'd have to get out and stuff. Cause we're both out until the 3rd,
Yeah.
through the 3rd, I think,
Well,
which Brown Act would be the
So
2nd.
we'd have to get the agenda out and get it
Like
already
this-
in December, so we would have to be aware of that for
We've got
the
it.
people who.
Yeah.
could we do a special, instead of moving the commission meeting, could we do a special meeting of, that wouldn't require quorum and it would be of the interested parties? That's another way to handle it.
We always
maybe.
need quorum for a meeting.
In order to make any type of
Yeah,
recommendation,
we need a
would-
quorum.
recommendation.
Yeah, we need a quorum.
That's 6.
Is that 6? So how many can make it the 9th?
Which date was that again, the 9th?
And that would be,
I'm
now,
available.
are we talking about a special meeting or the?
Well, I think it's a special whenever we move it, right?
I
can't
guess, yeah,
remember.
technically it would be.
So you-
But then it would be the
commission
only meeting in
But if we
January.
did it as a meeting.
So how many people could be here on the 9th? We need 6?
No, we can
I
make
can
it
be
work,
here on
yeah.
We can
Probably
make it work.
got it.
Tracy, you cannot.
Tracy? Okay. So how many
it looks like
people is that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we've got 7, I think.
7, if
Okay.
you can make it.
So but
maybe Bill-
again,
and maybe
I'm trying to
Bill.
be sensitive
No, I
to if
think-
that works for you.
I think the biggest thing is we're gonna have to get everything ready in
Yeah.
December. So we're gonna have to be pretty settled with what's gonna be on the agenda, and if you're gonna provide recommendation language, we'll just have to get that in by like mid-December.
I will just send reminders to make sure that we're staying within the time frame, but we're making sure that everything's updated, no last minute updates, and then we could send everything to Brown Act on time, and that date of the meeting should be able to work, as long as we all stay on the same page.
So then, so just so we know, that would be like the 16th of December, so that
Yeah,
we
so
know?
I'm starting, so personally, my schedule, I'm out starting the 19th of December.
Okay, so
So we
should
would
do
need
it
to
by-
get everything done.
around this, we should
before
have
that.
it into you by the 16th. Okay.
All right, that sounds great.
Okay.
So you've got minutes on all of that, so we'll add that to the minutes of this meeting, so everyone can be up to speed. Okay.
Sorry, so we're gonna go ahead with,
So meeting January 9th, I guess,
The 9th.
do we need to vote to do that? Or are we good? Okay.
And
Probably
you'll be able to get us the information we need in advance for review, of course.
So then that way, if Tracy or you have a comment, you can, I guess, send it in or something. I think we can do that, right?
Yeah.
If she has a comment on it, she can send it to you.
For which one?
In case, on the rates, I think something can be
Oh.
sent to you.
Oh,
I think it would
Yeah.
just be included in the, like as an
it
attachment
could be like a
along with
public
the other
record
attachments.
essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
Type of attachment,
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
In case.
Posted on there.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Well, if there aren't any more comments or discussion, then I call this meeting adjourned.
I'm honored to serve as your vice chair. I have no idea what that means. I just wanted to avoid being nominated for the chair.